All right, for anybody who just joined, we're waiting just another minute to give some people some time to hop on. All right, folks, it did just hit the hour. We only have about 30 minutes here today, so I do want to get started just so that we have some time for questions. I think we have a relatively small group. I'm going to save the end for questions, or I'll call out specifically if anybody has questions on anything that I've just done. So at that point, you can certainly let me know. We'll save some time at the end too, just to make sure everybody has a chance to talk. But today we're going to be going over the new email builder. That is going to be accessible for you in your admin area. So I am in a training session, right? Your training site right now. Give me one sec. All right. I'm still going to go over into the communications panel over here, just like I would when we had email manager. And we're going to start by taking a look at our email builder here. This is where I am going to go to deal with any email builds that I'm going to make. So these are going to kind of function like the templates that you're used to. If I'm looking to add things to an email that I'm going to use later, I'm going to stick in the email builder section to be able to do anything with those. So the first thing I might do, I'm going to use this search function over here. Something that we all might send out from time to time might be our welcome emails. That's something that I'm going to search for. And this is going to look pretty much like it would in any other section of the system. We're used to a list of things down below. We still have a big button at the top of the screen to create a brand new email build if we would like to use one. But in this case, we're going to take a look and see what we might do with a built-in template. Give me one second, just making sure folks are muted so we can all hear. So the first thing I see, we have our member welcome here. This is going to be the default build that we use within the system. We've already made a copy of that default, but we can certainly make another if this is something we would want to use. So I'm clicking copy on that right-hand side. And this is what we'll see once we start going through the steps. This is going to look a lot like the process for editing or creating a page. So if you're familiar with that, you're going to have the same process here. So maybe I'm going to call this Member Welcome 2024 because I'm going to use it starting next year. I might adjust this subject a bit. See whatever we would like with that, and we'll hit next to get to the content and layout page. Again, this looks a lot like it would when we were actually editing a page, so we still have the same functions there. We're able to adjust the layout with the layout tab. So maybe we want to add a little section down below that's a 50-50 container for some additional content. So I can hit add a container over here. Select one of those column structures, and now I have that underneath for us to make changes to. I can hop into the content section and use any of these plus signs to be able to actually add content to that section. So the first thing I'm going to do, I know that I want to add some information on some upcoming meetings into this email. So I'm going to select the meeting section over here, and I am going to pick a meeting column 1 with the left details, just because I think that'll look nice in our little 2 column section. And for my new members, maybe I want to see 2 upcoming meetings in this email. This is going to work just like it would anywhere else with our dynamic content section down here. That means anytime I send this email, it's going to pull the next 2 meetings upcoming, so I won't have to go back in here and make those manual changes that you might have needed to make before to a template. You do have some settings you can pick if you'd like a meeting category to display. So if you have any new member socials or any categories that you're currently using for your meetings, you might want to winnow this down a little bit so it's only showing some relevant ones. But I can still type in here just like I would. So let's say, come join us. And we can style this using our typical formats tool in the text editor over here. So I'm going to hover over and grab an H2 just to see what that looks like. And I can do the same thing in my right column if, say, I wanted to add something like some sponsors. Same thing, I have a ton of different options to choose from in the content sections over here. So I can customize this really however I'd like. With my 2 columns though, I'm probably going to stick with this little 1 column just so things look all right. And I can do the same thing and add a little title here. With this one, you do have the ability to set a max number, just like we did for the meetings, and you can pick categories as well. This is going to look very similar to the functions that you see when you're creating a page. Going to work the same way. No matter if I send this today, it'll pick the sponsors that I have in there today, or if I send it 6 months from now and it's a completely different group of folks, the system's going to update that for you based on that dynamic content that we see down at the bottom. So I'm going to hit add, and from there, I'm going to preview what this looks like just to see what I want to do. Oh, I see. All right. So we have our content in here. A couple things I might want to change. So I see that this header is at the same level on the meeting section, and we have a ton of sponsors over here. So I might go back in and edit this so I only see the gold sponsors. And maybe I change this up a little bit to change the display of the email. Same thing with the meeting. I'm going to change that too, just so it looks a little bit cleaner. And we can preview, and that looks a little bit better when I scroll down. That content we see at the top is in the basic part of this email build, this member welcome section. If I were to click edit on this, I'm going to see dynamic content just like I saw for the meeting and the sponsor section. We'll talk about where we can go to make changes to that if we need to next. But in general, if you see this, all that means is we're going to have to go over to an actual template to make any changes. In the email build itself, we wouldn't be able to edit that, but we can add more content to the build like we did with the meeting and the sponsors section. So if I'm happy with this for now, I'm happy with my preview, I am going to hit next. And I'm going to publish this just so that we have our new member welcome 2024 over here. We have a couple other things over here on our quick action buttons just to be aware of. If you do need a quick preview to make sure you're sending the right one or you know which email build you're working with, you do have a preview button over here to make that show up for you. And you also have a make default button. So right now, member welcome copy is our default, which means if we have some automatic settings on to send a welcome email out to those new members every night, this is the one that's going to go. But if we just created this new one for 2024 and we want to make sure that's the one that's going out, we can hit make default and that will do that for you. So now we don't have to double check or specifically send this one out. The system now knows that this is the build that we should be using. So with that, I'm going to hop over real quick to the design tab. And over here, you will still see a section called email templates. So this is really going to look pretty identical to what you had before. And this is where you would go really if you only need to make any edits to those very specific dynamic content sections. This is based off of our variables. So if this is a little bit kind of too much when you come in here, we are able to, through the support team, make some small changes for you if you need any help with any of this. But in general, with that member welcome, maybe you want to add some additional content than what we have in here with, how to view and log in your chapter website. Sometimes I see folks write things about what they did in the previous year or things that are going to be upcoming. You can still go in here and use this like you would any other text box. So you can start typing in here to add that to your build. I've also seen some folks maybe get rid of this little contact section because we might want to put that underneath what we have on the welcome email. That's totally fine. So I might get rid of that for now and save that before I hop back over in my build to find that new template or that new build that we just made. So we'll still have that 2024 right here. I want to just jump directly into making some changes. I'm going to hit content and layout. That's going to take me back to that page where we added those content sections. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the layout tab and add another 1-column section directly below that little meeting and sponsor section that we created. That way we could do a little sign off that's a little bit more custom. And then once we go over there, we can really add whatever we want because we'll have a blank content section available for us where you can add, text as you would anywhere else. So I'm going to hop back over into content, and then I'm going to use these plus signs over here again to add a new content section. So what we did with the meeting and the sponsor column or sponsor section, those were dynamic content sections. In this case, I'm just going to stick on the general section and do a blank. It's going to be an open text box for us. So first thing I typically do is I'm going to rename this so I know what it is when I go back in a little bit later. And we'll say, if you have any questions, please contact our membership chair, John Smith, at johnsmith@google.com. Okay, so we'll change that really however we would like. We can even add any links. We could add additional images if we want. I'm just going to add this as a typical email link just to make sure we have that set for folks. And then maybe like I would on a page, maybe I want to add a little headshot of our membership chair. I'm going to open up Moxie by clicking our little landscape icon over here, clicking our source button as usual. And then I'm going to pick somebody's photo over here to get added. So this can always be adjusted. We can add it wherever we need to. I might float it to the left just so it looks a little nicer. And I'm actually going to go into that little advanced tab and add some space. And once I add that, we'll go preview it one more time and see how it looks. All right, so it looks like we messed up that little down there, but that's fine. We can adjust that if we need to, or move this around however we would like. Once we've made that change, we officially have our build. And if we were sending this out manually, we would be able to do that now. Now, before I move forward into that, does anybody have any questions I can answer on that process?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question. I noticed, and you're doing a welcome email, but for me, meeting emails, the templates, and I need to create, we have different chapters and I need to create different headers, but it is not an option to make that change. And I don't see it in the dynamic content. So is there a way to do that?
So different headers, like you're adding like a different image at the top?
Yep.
So with that, let's go over to a meeting email real quick. Are you using a specific build right now that I can use?
The one I was using was just the meeting single 2-column detailed. Okay. But I don't see that specifically when I go back into the design, so I'm just looking for some help.
Sure. So with that, this typical meeting single over here, you're just going to have your basic email header pop up in here. So that is going to be your logo typically in a 600 pixel wide. What I would do in this case, honestly, is I would add a new blank section, and then whatever header that you have, I would input in here just like you would any other image. So that would be the same process that we just went through with that little headshot, pulling up something from Moxie over here. Let's see if we have anything long that we could use. Let's see if I can't make that bigger just to show. And what I would do, let me see real quick. is I'm going to use the email view up here, header bottom. If I click that, I'm going to see where my email header is supposed to show up. And I can drag that up in here to hide the one that is actually showing as a default. So if I preview, that logo isn't there anymore, and the image that I used instead is now showing up just like the header would. So that would just mean hitting that email view and making sure you see the header.
Just to be, you were going to send us a link back to the video so we can do that a little slower.
Yep, yeah, and I can do that again. So I'm just clicking email view up here to view the header bottom. That's where that default email header lives. It's going to show, excuse me, as a default, but you'll see hide as an option over here. And you can use this like any other container in a build. So theoretically, you could put literally any content that you wanted to in this section. In this case, since you're doing specific headers for each chapter, you can add a new blank section. You could call this chapter header number 1. And then you'd want to upload that header image just like you would any other image in the email. So if you had that header image that you were ready to upload, we'd go through Moxie. We would upload that over here. Let's select one just so we can pull it in again. We'll select that image that we just uploaded, and we can adjust this however we need to. The default width is going to be 600 pixels for an email header. So just to keep that in mind if you're making, images to use. And once we add that, we can use these sections again, just like we would any other page section. So we can click these around, click and drag, move wherever we need to. But as long as that email header is hidden, it's going to go to the section that you just created. So we have chapter header 1 with that star chapter image. We preview, that's now what is showing and not the default header that is in the system. Does that make sense?
Hey, Janet, this is Heather. I have a question.
Sure.
So in the email templates, like one of the ones that I'm trying to change is member expiration notice. And I went in and I copied into a Word doc all of my old templates in their source codes. And I'm trying to put that in right now to this template, but when I do it, it doesn't do it properly. But then there's no way to view exactly what this looks like.
So when you're doing that over here, you're putting the information in here.
Yeah.
Open a support ticket for that for me, and then I can go and take a look at that specific one.
Okay, perfect. Will do.
Other questions before we walk through sending an email and those changes?
Oh, you know what? I do have one more. How do we add something in here?
So add something, maybe like some text or
templates.
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that?
If I wanted to add a new template in the email templates, how do I add that? Because there's no add button.
So you can't create new email templates. You can only create new email builds.
Gotcha.
So there's no way to do anything with the variables where you would create a new one.
Okay. So if I wanted to send an email or have something, a template in here, there's no way to do it other than maybe using something that's already in here.
Yes, I would go to email builder first. So depending on the content of what you're essentially like trying to duplicate or create a new one of, I would probably add a new email over an email builder. Can you give me like an example of what you're trying to make a new template of?
So I want to make a template that says it's just an email that I would be sending directly to like my approved members and my student approved members. But I want a template that I can just always fall back to, like we used to be able to do, but now there's no way to do that.
once we put a container in, so I'll get that one column centered for us. I can use this however I would like to. So if I have some text that's going to be sent out every time I send this out to approved members, I can add that in my blank section.
Okay. So
And I
just
can
do
build
this
this out.
here.
Yep, so you would just build this out in email builder.
Okay.
And that's just going to be just depending on the content that you kind of use to send it out. But this would be essentially what creating a new template was before.
Okay. And then I'll be able to see it when I go to like send an email and I can click on whatever this builder name is.
Right, we'll actually go over there now so I can show you where it would pop up.
Okay.
So sending an email through Email Builder is going to look very similar to what it did before with Email Manager, but we'll still walk through this process. I'm going to set it up as a recurring meeting just because we have about 10 minutes left, and I'll show you kind of where the functionality has changed over there. So let's set this up as a monthly approved members, whatever we want to do with that. And then what we're going to do, oh, it should show up in general for us. Let's see. Let me double check. Let's go through like it's a normal email. See if we can't pull that build up for us. I just want to make sure that we can see where that popped up. I apologize. I'm not sure where that is popping up for us, but I'll get you that answer specifically.
Okay. And then that's where it would be kind of housed in there. So when I wanted to go in and send a blast email to some approved members, I would be able to find it somewhere.
Right. And then you would be able to pull that email build from over here. It would work like any of these would, where you see the email builds popping up on this right-hand side. That would just be where you selected it.
And it would say approved members, or would this be, what would it say in that email?
Whatever you named the build.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Thank
So
you.
let's do a meeting just for right now. And let's see, we're doing a scheduled one. So let's do a couple upcoming meetings. And we'll see on the schedule page that this looks a little bit different than it did previously. So specifically for email meeting reminders, you do still have the ability to set the number of days before a meeting that you want to send this, but a new feature is that you are able to actually set the time that this goes out. So no more of those extremely early morning emails on a recurring campaign. So if we want to pick that we want this email in everybody's inbox at 12:30, we can set that specifically. And this is going to send out on the correct date at the correct time now. This is going to look very similar in a recurring meeting. We aren't going to be able to change the content. If we were just doing a send now, we would have that ability. So if we were sending an email for that welcome email that we just created one time, we could go in there and make any one-off changes that we wanted to. But in general, with these recurring ones, we're not going to be able to edit that build on this page. Otherwise, we're going to go through the attachments and the recipient steps over here. And this is going to be as it was before. You can select who this is going to. Since this is an upcoming meeting reminder, it's going to show us more than one meeting, which is a change from what we had previously. So maybe this is something that we're sending to all of our members in the system to let them know what's coming up on the calendar. And then we still have the ability to send a test email to ourselves just so that we're sure we know what it looks like before we actually commit this recurring email to go. So we could save it. We could activate it immediately if we wanted to start this going out 5 days before the next upcoming meeting, but you will have the ability to make that the change on the date as well. So that's going to be the new feature for you over in the recurring section. In general, sending an email immediately is going to look very similar to that. It's going to send out obviously once you hit send. So you won't have that page with the time to pick, but that would be the biggest change over here when we're actually sending out the email.
Hey, Jenna, this is Heather again. I have a question on this.
Sure.
So because we don't have a calendar to like click on the day we actually want it to go out on, I mean, I know that that was a specific one you did with with the dates. If we did monthly, does monthly show us the date? I can't remember if that shows us the date we would want it to actually go up.
Sure, let's go through. Let's do just a random email. We can do that renewal notice one since that'll be something a lot of folks do.
Oh yeah, okay.
But we'll have a monthly option or a weekly option, and then we can check our start date over here. You do want to make sure that it's going out at least one day in advance. So I wouldn't want this to go out today. I'm going to say maybe we would set this for tomorrow. And then the same thing, we're able to set the specific time that we want that in folks' inbox.
So how come the other one showed the days prior and not giving us the dates and times on that other email? Was that just because of this specific way you did it?
So that's specifically the meeting email builds. So the meeting email builds are going to ask you how many days before the meeting rather than this. But on any general emails that you're recurring, renewal emails, member emails, you'll see this. So meetings would be the only one where you see that days before page.
And does it count? So that's the problem I have with that one. I'm trying to get it to not go on like Saturday. I want it to go during the week. Does it count? Well, you say 5 days prior, but is that like, does it count the day of the meeting and then 5 days? Or is it like, how do we figure it out? It'd be great to have a calendar there.
And I can pass that along, no problem. I am not sure if it counts that specific day. I can get you that answer, but for the upcoming ones, it's counting the days before the next meeting. So that one that I picked had multiple meetings in it. So if you have a meeting 5 days from now and a meeting 10 days from now, it's going to send 5 days before that closest meeting, and it would send again once that next meeting was coming up.
5 days prior to that, the second.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, calendar would be great in my opinion, but that's just me.
Yeah, sure. I'll pass that along. No problem.
Heather, I agree. This is Kim. I would love that feature. I'm actually shocked that didn't get pulled in.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think I use this way and I just send it out like more of an announcement because I don't like that feature of trying to figure out how many days prior to my event I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Great. Yeah, no, I'll pass that along. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Oh, this is me again.
No worries.
I do just have a general question. What I'm trying to figure out is, with the new email builder, when it got implemented into like my first, because I was on one of the data beta testing, it messed up every time I try to invoice someone. So when I just go in and invoice a member or a non-member, it's still every time they pay, it shows me a blank, it gives me a blank receipt, but then showing that it wasn't paid, but it's like very complicated. And I've sent several support tickets in, but yet I still have not received an answer and it's been like 2 months. So I'm just trying to figure out, is anyone else having issues when they send an invoice to a member and then when they pay it, you don't get like an actual receipt? It's just zero with nobody's names on it. So you don't know who paid.
That's a known bug. So we do have folks on our dev team working on that right now. You're not the only one who's had that problem.
Okay. I just want to make sure, like, am I doing it wrong?
Yeah, no problem. No, they're working on that right now. In fact, I can take a look and see where we are on that too. And let you know.
Everyone on the call, just be aware of that. If you invoice someone and they pay it, you may get a receipt with like zeros and no one's names on it. So you have to kind of go back into the system to figure out what they paid for and who it was.
All right. Any other questions from anybody? All right. Well, just to kind of wrap up with that, that's creating email builds, editing some email templates, and sending emails out on a schedule or on an immediate basis. Everything else is going to look pretty identical to what you had before. You're still going to have options over here to see your email history, to pull information on these, as well as use your charts and reports for things like your bounce checker. So that process has remained exactly the same for you if you need to go in and check anything that you've sent from there. Otherwise, I recommend playing around in Email Builder just to see if you want to create any new ones, like we talked about, kind of creating things whole cloth. And that way you can kind of customize exactly what's going out, be able to pull that out when you actually send the email. But you can use any of those content sections to create really whatever you'd like to see from there. Other than that, oh, I'm sorry. I have a question over here. Sorry, I missed this. It is not to live. It's still not available in our portal. All right. It is live as of October 23rd. You might be on one of our classic designs. Can you tell me what chapter you're with? All right, I'll take a look once we get off here today, and I can let you know. I'll just send you an answer over in your ticket. You're probably one of one of our classic designs. They don't have access to Email Builder. If you would like to have access to this, I'll send you some information. You might want to do a redesign to our M series so that you have this available. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. If you do have any other questions, as you're playing around with this, you have anything specific, please feel free to enter a ticket and we can go over those in more detail with you. All right, thank you all. Goodbye.